Welcome back to the Foundation in C# course. We're currently in Module 10, and this lesson, we're going to answer the question, how do I get a great start at a new job? So we've talked about how to get work experience, how to build a portfolio, how to evaluate a position, and now we're going to talk about what do you do once you get started. I think of this as the week one work. Okay, so you get started on Monday of a job. What do you want to accomplish by Friday? What do you want to do in that first week? Because a first impression is really important. And getting started on the right foot is really important. Because that's going to change and color how people notes. Okay, so when you walk in day one, have a notebook. Have a blank notebook or I like a legal pad. Because a legal pad, you can flip the pages over, and it's just a little bit easier for me, I think, to write in than a fold-out book. Either way, whatever works for you, have a way to take notes. Not electronic notes, more likely it's going to be written notes that you then transcribe into the computer. But take notes. So they're going to introduce you to a lot of new things. Even if you are a senior developer, you have never worked on their code base. I've walked into organizations where, yes, I'm a senior developer, but their code base was different. And so you walk in, you're like, wow, I don't know what to do. This is a lot. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm not sure the flow. I'm not sure how it works. And guess what? Most likely, no documentation. just what it is. And you can't Google this stuff. It's not like you can go to Google and say, how does this work? How do we do that? You can't do that because it's all proprietary code. The code, but also the processes. So when I start at companies, usually the process for what we call DevOps, the idea of how do you get your source code into source control, and then how you take that source code and build it for continuous integration, and then deploy it for continuous deployment. Usually that's not an automated process. I've worked at organizations where that process is a whole lot of guesswork, copying, and hours of work. Well, you have to know how to do that because that's not something you'll find in the industry somewhere as a best practice probably. Because, and to be fair to organizations, things happen fast. When you're doing things and you gotta get something out the door fast, you don't have time to sit down and have a meeting about what's the best way of doing this and what are the processes we should put in place. Usually it is, you've got half an hour, we need to get this done because it's a production problem. And so work. But in order to do that, you have to understand that process. So get to know it, document it. When they teach you what goes on, they're going to tell you, we do this, and then we do this, and we copy this file here, and write it down. Everything. Okay? And then put that into a digital document at some point. But also, you will meet people. And whether that it's a small organization, there's only 3 or 4 people, or there's a large organization and there's dozens or hundreds of people. When you meet people, write down their name. I am horrible at names. I really am. And I try very hard not to be. And if I'm conscientiously thinking about it, it will help. But write their name down. Write down what they do. So later, when you have a question, you can go to that person because you know, okay, that's the database administrator. So when I have a database problem or a database question, I can go talk to Jill. And I know that Jill knows the database and is in charge of the database and would help me with this problem. So now you don't have to ask your boss, who was that database administrator I talked to last week? You know who it was. You've written it down. Okay, so write down the code, okay, how you work with the code, what the code's about, how it flows, what you're working on, all that, document it. The processes, how we deploy software, how we build software, how we work on tickets. So if there's a ticketing system where someone says, this is a problem, they put it into a document or a formal process in some way, that call a ticket, and then you get that. How does that process work? How do you work on it? How do you say it's done? How do you take what you've done and deploy it into production? All those things, write them down. And then every person that you meet, write down their name, write down their information, document it so that you know, and hopefully you will have a much better grasp on the organization and what you're supposed to do. People don't mind typically telling you something you don't know. The problem comes in when you ask the same question over and over. Yes, you'll be learning a lot of stuff and it's going to be overwhelming because there's a lot that you don't know. And yes, there'll be understanding to an extent of you not remembering the very first time you're taught something. But at some point that wears thin and they realize or feel like you are taking advantage of them and you're using them as your I remember we talked about this and I can't find out my notes or I didn't write it down. I'm going to write it down this time, but can you help me with this? It happens. You have to be humble enough to say, I don't know. I don't remember. Okay? But those notes will help you do that less because you've remembered by putting it on paper and then by putting it into the computer. So that's step one. Take notes of everything. Step two, ask questions. And again, I've already talked about this a little bit, but if you don't understand something, look first for help from what you've already learned. All right. So if you don't understand something, go to your notes and say, did we cover that? Because by about Thursday, so you start on Monday, about 4 days in, you're going to have a hard time remembering what you did on Monday because you're just learning so much stuff and you're kind of absorbing things and you're trying to absorb things. And at some point, it seems to deflect off the top of your brain and go out. So look through the notes. Make sure you don't have a note on it somewhere. If you have a note on it somewhere, refresh your memory and then hopefully you'll understand. But if you don't see the answer or if the answer is not clear enough, stuff, whether it's the people, the processes, or even the code base. They shouldn't expect you to know that right out of the gate. Now, there is something said for reading the code, if it's a code issue, reading the code and trying to follow it yourself. And do that. And you have a question about it, if it's a code issue, read through the code and think through it and think through what's going on and say, you've shown initiative. You've said, I tried looking, I looked through these things, and it seems like this is the case, but I can't find initiative. You've shown that you're not just looking for them to do your job. You're looking for the institutional knowledge that you can't get somewhere else. And more likely, they're willing to help you. Okay? So ask questions, but don't just start there. Look to your documentation first, your notes, and then try and find the answer on your own, but don't waste time doing it. So there's a balance of being quick about it, but also trying to be thorough in your investigation. And maybe if you think you found the answer, say that. Say, okay, I think I found the answer. I think the answer is this to this question, but am I correct? The code and you haven't done something you shouldn't have, but you've also communicated, I really try to get this, and I just missed a piece. And you've made it so it's just talking that little piece that you missed, or maybe it's just great job. And now you've shown initiative and they realize that long at the company. All right, so ask questions. Be thankful. Again, we talked about this when we talked about asking good questions when we're looking at the internet. This is the same principle. You have to work with these people. You have to interact with them. If they feel like you are just there to take away from them, and if hiring you just means they have to do more work, they will be resentful. However, if you come across as a person who is thankful for what they do and is eager to do it on your own so that you can become a fully functioning member of the team and take work away from them, not in a negative way, but as an easing of their burden, if you can help do the work, they will be happy to continue helping you. So, every time someone helps you, every single time, thank them. Sounds simple, but do so and be sincere about it. Be appreciative of their time. So your current employee who is working with a new hire, all right, the current employee's perspective is that every time that new hire and so if you're the new employee and I'm the current employee, then you're slowing me down every time you ask a question. Now, I'm okay with that if you're growing and if you're starting to do some work and if you are learning from what I tell you. But if you're just asking questions, asking the question again, and asking the question again, now I'm getting tired of it because you're slowing me down and there's no benefit to me. So be thankful. Learn from what you ask. Document it so you don't ask the same question twice. And respect their time. Okay? So work not to waste it by remembering what they say. That's how you can show the most respect for their time is when you ask a question, write it down, learn from it, and hopefully don't ask it again. And if you have to ask it again, acknowledge it the next time and it's a little bit different and maybe something's not working quite right, but you follow the steps, go to them and say, okay, so last time we talked about this is how we complete a ticket, let's say. And I remembered that and I've got those notes. And so I went this time to complete my ticket, but something's a little different. Can you help me? Now you're showing respect for their time because even though you're asking them again about happiness, with, sure, I will definitely help you with that. I love to help you, rather than frustration at what you're asking. Okay? So asking questions is important, how you ask them and what you do with that information. Now, at the end of this process, whether it's the end of the week or the end of a month or even a few days in, offer to turn your documentation in. So again, I said write this in a notepad, convert it over to actual documents, maybe create a little bit of a structure to these. But offer to turn this in, because if this wasn't documented, if the documentation the employer had for you was not enough to get you started, further faster. And with very little to no extra work, you can give your employer a benefit and pay them back for the time they invested in getting you up to speed by helping getting the next person up to speed easy. Okay? This makes your manager's job easier, and it makes your coworker's job easier. Remember, a new employee takes away time from your normal job. So this way, they take away less time and they become productive faster. So offer to turn this in. Say, hey, I've already got it. It's already done. There's no time we're going to take away from work, but I've got this stuff. Can I put this somewhere, or can I give this to you to put somewhere, or can we use this somewhere? Because it's already here, it's already done, but this helped me, and it should help the next new hire we have get further faster. So with that, you have shown initiative, because you've done something your boss didn't ask you to do probably, but that would be helpful for your boss. And you have hopefully saved the company time and money, because if a new hire gets onboarded faster and therefore you've saved the company time and money. All these things are really good for companies. Companies love it when you save them time and money. And especially when you do it without taking time away from your normal job. So, turn in your documentation. All right, so the pro tip. First impressions are important, all right? Give the impression that you are a hard worker and that you're attentive. These two things will be really important. Now, when I say give the impression, I am not saying hide the fact that you are lazy and inattentive. No, what I'm saying is you do that first impression is hard worker and attentive. I would love to have employees like that. If every employee I hired was attentive and a hard worker, I'd be much more willing to hire more employees, because I could get value out of them. So, you be an employee that your boss would love to have. Your homework. Create a system that works best for you for documenting what you learn and who you meet. But here's the key. Make it simple and easy to use. Again, we talked about portfolio and the idea that you want the content more than how you lay it out, and don't worry as much about layout. Same thing's true here. Don't get so caught up in the layout and the structure and design and making it pretty and linking and all this stuff. Concentrate on the value it gives. Concentrate on that. Make it simple and easy to use. So if you have a structure, make it a very simple structure. Don't have a lot of complexities to it. Otherwise, you just won't use it. And at that point, you've made something worse than valueless. You've made something that takes time rather than gives time. So create a system that works for you. And that may mean, so for me, it's just a legal pad with, if it's a person, I have name and then a rep of what they do. Okay, that's it. For a process like, let's say, creating a help ticket, well, I would have I'd write down the steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all I do. I don't do a lot of extra stuff. I don't have a lot of extra layout stuff and different fields and questions to ask. I usually don't. Now, if it works for you to have a few questions to ask, go for it. If it works for you to have a little more structure, that's fine. Just don't concentrate on the structure. Concentrate on the content. Okay? So that's your homework. Create a system that works for you. Even if it's just saying, I'm going to carry a legal pad and write this stuff down. And then at night, I'm going to type this up in Microsoft Word. That's it. Okay? That's a great structure. If something a little bit better works for you or a little bit different works for you, that's fine. But just identify what works for you and then make sure that you follow it. Okay? So that's your homework. Identify that structure so that you're ready to go day one.